From the moment I was old enough to understand the weight of betrayal, I learned one truth. Sometimes the person who ruins your life smiles exactly like you. They share your childhood memories, your family photos, and the same last name. But they don't share your conscience. This is the story of how my own sister stole the life I built with my bare hands and somehow still expected me to forgive her. I was 27 when everything started to unravel. Though, in hindsight, the threads had been loosening for years. My sister, Liana, had always been the kind of person who walked into a room and made everyone feel like they'd been waiting for her. Charismatic, charming, effortlessly pretty. She grew used to getting what she wanted, and when she couldn't get it, she simply took it. But she wasn't always like that. I remember a time when she clung to me like I was the only safe place in the world. When our parents fought too loudly behind closed doors, she'd crawl into my bed and whisper, "Stay with me, don't leave." I never did. Even when she grew out of needing me, I never stopped protecting her. That is probably why it hurt so much when she aimed her first real act of destruction directly at me. It began with my dream job. I had spent years building a portfolio, volunteering, interning, squeezing every drop of energy into creating a future I could be proud of. When I finally landed an interview at the firm I'd idolized since college, I didn't tell anyone except Liana. She was the only one who knew how much it meant to me. 2 days before the interview, I woke up to an email from the company. "Thank you for your time. We appreciate your interest, but we will not be moving forward with your application." My chest tightened. I hadn't even gone to the interview yet. Confused, I called HR. Their answer made my stomach drop. They told me I had shown up the previous afternoon, that I seemed unprepared, distracted, and left early. They said I even mentioned wanting to withdraw. I didn't understand until I noticed something missing from my desk. The carefully prepared red folder with my resume, letters of recommendation, and portfolio samples. I remember Liana coming into my room the night before, asking if she could borrow a charger. I hadn't noticed her eyes scanning my workspace. But it still seemed impossible, until I saw the building security footage. There she was, wearing my blazer, carrying my folder, pretending to be me. I confronted her, shaking with disbelief. Her answer? A shrug. A tiny, unapologetic shrug. "I needed the job more than you. You always land on your feet." I stared at her, searching her face for any trace of the little sister who once cried into my pillow. But the girl standing in front of me was someone else, someone who had decided that my dreams were hers for the taking. That was just the beginning. Weeks later, my bank notified me of suspicious withdrawals. My savings, money I'd earned working late nights, was disappearing in chunks. I soon learned she'd been using my identity, my information, to open accounts, make purchases, drain what I'd worked years for. And when everything collapsed, when debt collectors were at my door, when interviews stopped calling back, when my landlord threatened eviction, my sister acted as if it were some unfortunate coincidence. Until the night I overheard her laughing about it. She was in the kitchen with her friends, sipping wine like she hadn't set fire to my entire existence. "She'll be fine," she laughed. "She always is. She's the responsible one." Something in me snapped. I walked into that kitchen, and everyone went silent. I could feel the heat rising from my skin, my hands trembling at my sides. "You stole everything from me," I said quietly. Liana rolled her eyes. "Stop being dramatic." Dramatic. That word echoed in my mind long after her friends scurried out the door. For months, I worked 3 jobs just to regain some stability. I cut ties with her completely. My mother begged me to forgive her. "She's your sister. Family fights." But this wasn't a fight. This was a deliberate dismantling of my life. I rebuilt from the ground up, slowly, painfully, alone.
Then, one rainy evening, almost a year later, there was a knock on my door. I opened it to find Liana standing there, soaked, trembling, mascara dripping down her face like ink leaking from a broken pen. "I need you," she whispered. "Please, I need your help." Her voice cracked, and for a moment, she looked like that scared little girl again. But I felt nothing. No spark of warmth, no instinct to protect her, just the hollow echo of every night I spent fixing what she had broken. She reached for my hand, and "I know I messed up, but I'm still your sister, and I need you to forgive me." The word forgive hovered in the air like smoke. Forgiveness? For the job she stole? The money she drained? The months I spent clawing my way back to survival? For the way she ruined my reputation, my peace, my future? I looked at her trying to understand why she thought she still had the right to ask me for anything. But before she could speak, she added something that made my pulse freeze, something that changed everything about that moment and what came after. She wiped her face with the back of her shaking hand before whispering, "They're after me." The words didn't make sense at first. They just lingered in the silence between us, thin and fragile, like something she was afraid to repeat. I stared at her, trying to read the truth behind her panicked eyes. Liana had lied so many times, manipulated so many situations, that my first instinct was to assume this was another performance, another attempt to twist my sympathy into something she could use. But then she flinched at a distant sound in the hallway. That wasn't an act. I stepped aside just enough for her to enter, but I didn't move closer. She closed the door behind her with trembling fingers, dripping water onto the floor as she wrapped her arms around herself like she was trying to hold her breaking world together. "Who is after you?" I finally asked, my voice flat. She took a shaky breath. "I made a mistake." I almost laughed at the irony. A mistake. As if everything she'd done could be reduced to one careless decision. But something in her tone made the hairs on my arms rise. This wasn't one of her usual messes. "I owe someone money," she whispered. "How much?" She hesitated, avoiding my eyes. 32,000. My breath hitched. "You what?" She winced, like the number physically hurt her. "I thought I could pay it back. I was stupid, okay? I was desperate." Desperate. She used that word when she stole my job, used it when she drained my savings, used it when she forged my signature. She always packaged her choices as emergencies, forcing other people to feel morally obligated to help her. But those debts were just emotional. This was something else. "Who do you owe?" I asked, stepping closer despite myself. She swallowed. "A man named Kai. He helped me out last year when I couldn't pay rent. He was nice at first." My chest tightened with a cold, sinking feeling. I'd heard stories about men like him, predators who disguised themselves as saviors, who offered loans with soft smiles but collected them with fists and threats. "What did you sign?" I pressed. She wrapped her arms tighter. "Nothing legal. He said paperwork wasn't necessary. I thought I could handle it." "And now?" Her eyes finally met mine, glossy with fear. "Now he wants everything back, with interest. And if I don't pay—" She didn't finish, but she didn't need to. I exhaled slowly, forcing my voice to stay calm. "And you came to me because I have no one else." Her voice cracked. Mom won't help. Dad won't talk to me. My friends disappeared the minute they realized I couldn't give them anything anymore. I'm alone, and I know it's my fault. But you, she took a tiny step closer, were always there for me. Please, I just need time, a place to stay, somewhere safe.
I stood very still, her words sinking deep into the cracks she had carved in me. A year ago, I would have folded instantly. I would have given her my bed, my savings, my last breath if she needed it. But now, all I felt was a heavy, measured silence. "You can stay for one night," I said, surprising myself. "Just one. I need time to think." Relief washed over her face like she'd been underwater too long. "Thank you. God, thank you. I knew you wouldn't abandon me." The word abandon struck a nerve. I hadn't abandoned her. She had abandoned me. She had walked away from every chance to make things right, every opportunity to stop hurting me, but I let the comment slide. Questions could wait. She sat on the couch, hugging her knees. For a moment, she looked strangely young, like the girl who used to hide in my room, afraid of thunder. But I refused to let nostalgia soften my judgment. After giving her a blanket and a towel, I stepped into the kitchen to make tea. My mind spun, sorting through the lies she told before, trying to weigh them against the fear trembling in her voice. She wasn't capable of acting this well. This was genuine. When I returned, she was staring at her phone with wide eyes. She immediately locked the screen as if the device had burned her. "What is it?" I asked. "They found my location. I think they tracked my phone." Cold dread crept up my spine. "Turn it off. Now." She did, hands clumsy with panic. I grabbed a dish towel from my sweaty palms and peeked through the window blinds. The street outside was quiet, the rain tapping rhythmically against the pavement, but something felt wrong. A presence. Distant, but growing. I locked the front door, then double-checked the back one. "What did he say when you left?" She hesitated. "That he'd collect what's owed one way or another." The room went still. My heart hammered painfully against my ribs. "You didn't tell him where you were going, did you?" "No," she said quickly. Too quickly. "I swear I didn't." But the trembling in her voice told me the full truth had not yet been spoken. I opened my mouth to question her, but then 3 sharp knocks rattled the front door. Not loud, but deliberate. Slow. Knuckles tapping in a rhythm that wasn't impatient, wasn't uncertain. It was the rhythm of someone who already knew they had the advantage. Liana froze, her face draining of color. I felt every muscle in my body lock up, my breath caught in my throat. The knocking came again. A deep voice followed, calm and unmistakably confident. "Liana, open the door. I know you're in there." The sound of my name tangled with hers in that low, steady voice sent a cold shock through me. I motioned silently for her to stay completely still. Her breath came in tiny, trembling pulls, but she nodded, curling into the corner of the couch like she wished she could disappear into it. Another knock followed, gentler this time, almost polite. The calmness in it was worse than any threat. Someone who wasn't afraid to wait, wasn't afraid to be heard, wasn't in a rush, was someone utterly certain of his control. I stepped quietly toward the door, not close enough to be seen through the people, but close enough to listen. Rain pattered softly outside, blending with the hum of streetlights. I could hear him breathing. Slow, unhurried, like a hunter who knew exactly where his prey was hiding. "Leona," he said again, voice smooth. "You ran so suddenly. That hurt my feelings." I glanced back at her. Her fingers dug into the blanket, knuckles pale, shaking as if each word scraped against her nerves.
She mouthed one word at me. Please. I didn't know if she meant please don't open it, or please save me, or please forgive me. Maybe she didn't know either. The doorknob rattled, gently, testing, not forcing. I'm not here for trouble, he said. I just want to talk. A lie. A flawless lie delivered with the ease of someone who lied professionally.
I pulled Liana up quietly and led her into the hallway, away from the door. My mind raced, options, exits, consequences tumbling over each other. My apartment wasn't large, but it had one advantage: a back stairwell rarely used by neighbors. If we could slip out quietly, we might avoid a confrontation. But as we reached the hall, her phone, though powered off, buzzed faintly in her pocket. She froze. I whipped around, eyebrows raised. She stared at me, then slowly pulled it out. The screen remained black, but the vibration had been unmistakable. He hacked it. Even when it's off, he warned me he could. I didn't have time to process the violation before the voice outside the door grew colder. You're not being polite. Ignoring someone who helped you, Liana? That's rude. This time, his tone held an undercurrent of something sharper, impatience or amusement. I couldn't tell. I grabbed her wrist and pulled her toward the kitchen. The back exit was just beyond it. We moved as quietly as shadows, but the floor creaked under her foot. Just once, soft, but unmistakable in the silence. Everything paused. The knocking stopped. Even the rain seemed to hush, holding its breath with us. Then a soft chuckle drifted through the door. There you are. Before panic could paralyze either of us, I pulled her into the kitchen, opening the back door as silently as I could. A gust of cool, wet air rushed in, carrying the scent of rain-soaked pavement. We slipped out into the narrow stairwell, moving down each step like the metal might scream beneath us. Behind the front door, a new sound emerged. Footsteps. Slow. Roaming. As if he were walking along the hallway inside the building. My heart dropped. He wasn't alone. Someone must have let him in. Someone who believed his smile, or someone who didn't want trouble. We reached the second flight when Liana suddenly stopped. Her breath hitched, eyes widening as she stared down the staircase. A silhouette was standing at the bottom, motionless, watching us. I felt her grip on my wrist tighten painfully. The man below wasn't moving toward us, but he didn't have to. His presence was enough to trap us between him and the man at my front door. He lifted his chin slightly, acknowledging us without a word. Another hunter. 2 exits. Both blocked. I pulled Liana back up the stairs, forcing her to move even as her tears streaked down her rain-damped face. She kept whispering tiny, panicked apologies, broken little sounds that didn't erase what she'd done, but made her seem briefly human again. We slipped back into the apartment, locking the door behind us. My hands shook as I scanned the space for anything that could be used as defense or distraction. A kitchen knife, a lamp, a heavy vase. Nothing felt enough. Liana pressed herself against the wall, crying silently, her body shaking violently. What did you do to them? I demanded in a harsh whisper. Why are they here? What did you promise them? She squeezed her eyes shut. I didn't just borrow money. I stared at her. What else? I used your name, your info. I told him you'd guarantee the loan, that you had savings, that you wouldn't let me fall behind. My breath left me in a sharp, stunned exhale. You dragged me into this. You tied my name to him. Her shameful silence was confirmation enough. Before I could speak again, a soft tapping began on my bedroom window. We both turned, slowly, as if the movement would draw attention. Another silhouette. A third. I pulled Liana up quietly and led her into the hallway, away from the door. My mind raced, options, exits, consequences tumbling over each other. My apartment wasn't large, but it had one advantage: a back stairwell rarely used by neighbors. If we could slip out quietly, we might avoid a confrontation. But as we reached the hall, her phone, though powered off, buzzed faintly in her pocket. She froze. I whipped around, eyebrows raised. She stared at me, then slowly pulled it out. The screen remained black, but the vibration had been unmistakable. He hacked it. Even when it's off, he warned me he could. I didn't have time to process the violation before the voice outside the door grew colder. "You're not being polite. Ignoring someone who helped you, Liana? That's rude." This time, his tone held an undercurrent of something sharper, impatience or amusement. I couldn't tell. I grabbed her wrist and pulled her toward the kitchen. The back exit was just beyond it. We moved as quietly as shadows, but the floor creaked under her foot. Just once, soft, but unmistakable in the silence. Everything paused. The knocking stopped. Even the rain seemed to hush, holding its breath with us. Then a soft chuckle drifted through the door. "There you are." Before panic could paralyze either of us, I pulled her into the kitchen, opening the back door as silently as I could. A gust of cool, wet air rushed in, carrying the scent of rain-soaked pavement. We slipped out into the narrow stairwell, moving down each step like the metal might scream beneath us. Behind the front door, a new sound emerged. Footsteps. Slow. Roaming. As if he were walking along the hallway inside the building. My heart dropped. He wasn't alone. Someone must have let him in. Someone who believed his smile, or someone who didn't want trouble. We reached the second flight when Liana suddenly stopped. Her breath hitched, eyes widening as she stared down the staircase. A silhouette was standing at the bottom, motionless, watching us. I felt her grip on my wrist tighten painfully. The man below wasn't moving toward us, but he didn't have to. His presence was enough to trap us between him and the man at my front door. He lifted his chin slightly, acknowledging us without a word. Another hunter. 2 exits. Both blocked. I pulled Liana back up the stairs, forcing her to move even as her tears streaked down her rain-damped face. She kept whispering tiny, panicked apologies, broken little sounds that didn't erase what she'd done, but made her seem briefly human again. We slipped back into the apartment, locking the door behind us. My hands shook as I scanned the space for anything that could be used as defense or distraction. A kitchen knife, a lamp, a heavy vase. Nothing felt enough. Liana pressed herself against the wall, crying silently, her body shaking violently. "What did you do to them?" I demanded in a harsh whisper. "Why are they here? What did you promise them?" She squeezed her eyes shut. I didn't just borrow money." I stared at her. "What else?" I used your name, your info. I told him you'd guarantee the loan, that you had savings, that you wouldn't let me fall behind." My breath left me in a sharp, stunned exhale. "You dragged me into this. You tied my name to him." Her shameful silence was confirmation enough. Before I could speak again, a soft tapping began on my bedroom window. We both turned, slowly, as if the movement would draw attention. Another silhouette. A third. They had surrounded the apartment. My pulse hammered in my ears. Liana slid to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably now, her guilt and fear mixing into a storm that filled the room. And then, my phone lit up. An unknown number. A text message appeared on the screen. "Open the door. We only need one of you." "If you only need one of us, take me. Leave her alone. I'll come out. Alone." Liana saw the screen too late. Her scream was muffled by my hand as I clasped it over her mouth to keep the sound from escaping the bathroom. "No!" she sobbed against my palm. "Don't do this. I did this. I should be the one." "You can't handle them," I said softly. "I can." And I meant it.
Not because I was stronger or braver, but because I had something she didn't. Control. Years of picking up her chaos had made me good at calculating consequences, surviving storms, holding myself together when everything else fell apart. The phone buzzed again. Good choice. Come out the front door. Alone. No surprises. I stood up, wiping my sweaty palms on my jeans. My pulse pounded in my throat, but my resolve hardened with each beat. I'm ending this, I whispered. No one else is paying for your choices, not anymore. She reached for me, hands shaking violently. I'll go instead. I will go. Please, please let me fix this. You can't fix something by dying for it, I said quietly. Start by living long enough to change. Before she could argue again, I stepped out of the bathroom and shut the door behind me, locking it from the outside. Her fists pounded against the wood immediately, desperate, frantic, muffled. I walked toward the front door, every step feeling like it tethered me to something inevitable. Shadows shifted beneath the crack as someone stood outside, waiting. The soft sound of breathing, steady, patient, filtered through. My hand hovered over the lock. My heartbeat slowed. My breathing steadied. I wasn't walking into a trap blindly. As soon as I opened that door, they'd expect me to surrender. But they wouldn't expect the knife tucked under my sleeve. Or the neighbor I'd texted moments earlier, an ex-cop with a baseball bat who lived 2 doors down. Or the recording app running on my phone, capturing everything. So when I finally turned the lock and pulled the door open, I looked straight into the cold eyes of the man who'd haunted Liana's nightmares. He smiled, slow and cruel. Brave, but pointless. I stepped out into the rain-soaked hallway, my jaw set. Then let's find out. And behind me, inside the locked bathroom, Liana whispered my name like a prayer she'd never said before. The hallway felt narrower than usual, as if the walls themselves leaned inward to watch what would happen. Rainwater dripped from the man's coat onto the floor, forming dark circles that spread slowly across the tile. He studied me with unsettling calm, head tilted slightly, lips curved in a faint, amused smirk. He wasn't tall, but he carried himself with a confidence that erased any need for physical intimidation. Power lived in his stillness. "Where's Liana?" he asked casually, as though he were inquiring about someone running late to dinner. "Safe," I answered. That wasn't the deal. I kept my gaze locked on his. "You said you needed one of us. I'm here. Let her go." His smirk deepened. "You think you get to negotiate." He took one step toward me, just one, but it was enough for the air to thicken like storm clouds rolling in too close.
Before he could move again, a faint creak echoed down the hallway. My heart thudded once, hard. The backup I'd called. The sound came from the stairwell door, barely noticeable unless you were expecting it. The man noticed. His eyes flicked in that direction for a fraction of a second, not enough for most people to catch, but enough for me. I'd watched that kind of twitch in Liana's face my entire life, the moment she sensed a threat, an advantage, or an escape. "You're not alone," he murmured, eyes narrowing. "I wasn't planning to be," I said. The tension snapped, like a wire pulled taut. He lunged, not with wild aggression, but with efficient precision, reaching for my arm. I jerked back, dodging by an inch. His hand brushed my sleeve, but not the knife hidden under it. I swung my arm upward, the blade glinting under the hallway light, but he moved faster than I expected, catching my wrist mid-swing. His grip tightened, iron-like, cutting off the motion entirely. "You're clever," he said softly, "but you're not a fighter." Before panic could set in, another figure appeared at the end of the hall, broad-shouldered with a bat in hand. My neighbor. His voice thundered down the corridor, "Let her go!" The man holding me didn't flinch. If anything, he looked amused. "You called the building hero?" My neighbor took a step forward, grip tightening on the bat. "This doesn't need to get messy." "Oh," he said, tilting his head, "I think it does." Footsteps sounded behind my neighbor, quick, coordinated. My stomach dropped. More men. I hadn't counted on them splitting. Shadows filled the stairwell behind him. 1, 2, maybe 3. My neighbor realized too late. One of the men rushed him from behind, knocking the bat from his hand. It clattered to the floor, spinning. Another shoved him hard, slamming him against the wall. He struggled, but he was outnumbered. The leader leaned in closer to me, his breath warm against my ear. "You think I'd come here without backup? You think I don't know how to corner my investments?" The word investments made my skin crawl. He released my wrist, only to grip my chin instead, forcing me to look at him. "Your sister made you collateral. That means you're very, very important to me." My stomach twisted. "Then why say you only needed one of us?" He smiled. "Because I wanted to see which one you'd sacrifice." The sound of Liana's faint pounding on the bathroom door drifted from inside the apartment, muffled but desperate. That sound, her fear, her helplessness, pulled something sharp and tangled inside me, a mix of anger, grief, and something I didn't want to name. "You're not getting either of us," I said. He chuckled. "You think you're in control." His hand reached for my arm again, but before he could grab me, something unexpected happened. The hallway lights flickered. Once. Twice. Then went out completely. Darkness swallowed the corridor. A moment of absolute, breathless silence. Then, chaos. My neighbor, still pinned, threw his weight wildly, managing to shove one attacker off balance. Another curse sliced through the dark. A scuffle erupted, shuffling feet, fists connecting with bodies, someone grunting in pain. The leader's grip missed me entirely this time, his hand closing on empty air. I used the split second of confusion to duck low, sliding across the floor toward where the bat had fallen. My fingers brushed cold metal. Someone grabbed my ankle.
I kicked hard, wildly, instinctively, connecting with something soft and vulnerable. A grunt followed, and the grip loosened. I scrambled to my feet and swung the bat blindly, hearing it crack against something solid. The lights flickered back on for a half second, enough for me to see two men restraining my neighbor, one clutching his face where I'd hit him. The leader was only feet away, eyes burning with fury now. No amusement, no patience left. The lights went out again. This time, I didn't wait. I ran. Down the hall, then back toward my apartment. I could hear him following, quiet, steady steps that echoed like footsteps in a nightmare. I burst inside, slammed the door, locked it, then rushed to the bathroom. Liana was on the floor, curled up, sobbing. "We're leaving," I whispered, grabbing her arm. "What's happening?" she choked. "No time. Move." I dragged her through the dark apartment to the one place I hadn't considered earlier because of how impossible it seemed. The fire escape. Old, rusted, barely used by anyone. But desperation made impossible things suddenly necessary. I shoved open the small window above the sink and pushed her through it. Rain poured in, soaking the counter. She hesitated. "What about you?" I said. "I'm right behind you." Her hand shook as she climbed through the window. But just as she stepped onto the iron grate outside, a voice floated from the hallway. "Found you." The front door rattled violently. Metal groaned. Wood cracked. Screws popped. They were breaking in. Liana reached out her hand for me, eyes wide with terror. "Hurry!" she cried. I turned toward the window, but the door behind me shattered. The wooden door splintered inward with a violent crack, exploding into the room as the lock gave way. Shards flew across the floor like jagged teeth. The force of it sucked the air straight out of my lungs. "Run!" I screamed at Liana, but I didn't look back to see if she obeyed.
I grabbed the closest thing I could reach, a heavy ceramic bowl from the counter, and hurled it toward the doorway just as a figure stepped through the cloud of broken wood. It shattered against his shoulder, buying me only a heartbeat. A furious voice barked, "Don't let her get out!" I lunged toward the window, fingers gripping the metal frame as I hauled myself up. The cold rain slapped my face, the wind whipping at my hair. Behind me, heavy footsteps pounded across the kitchen tiles. A hand shot out, grazing the back of my coat, close enough to yank threads loose. I slipped through the window and landed hard on the fire escape, the metal grating vibrating under my weight. Liana was already halfway down the ladder, looking up at me with pure terror. "Hurry!" she cried. Before she could finish, the leader appeared at the window behind me, his silhouette framed in lightning. "You should have stayed inside," he growled. He tried to climb through after me. I kicked the window shut with all my strength. It slammed into his fingers, and he let out a sharp, venomous roar. He recoiled, but only for a second. Then he slammed his shoulder against the frame, cracking it further. We had seconds, maybe less. I scrambled down the ladder, gripping the icy metal rails as fast as my shaking hands allowed. Rain made everything slick, each rung a small betrayal waiting to happen. When I reached the platform below, Liana grabbed my wrist, tugging me downward. "They'll catch us! Oh God, he'll kill us!" "Keep moving," I ordered, my voice harsher than I intended. "Don't look back." Of course, she looked back, and she screamed. The leader had already climbed onto the fire escape, ignoring the blood dripping from his crushed fingers. His expression was no longer calm. It was feral, twisted by something colder than rage. "Stop running!" he yelled over the storm. "You can make this easy!" But we didn't stop. We hit the lowest platform, facing a drop of at least 15 feet to the alley below. The dumpsters sat beneath us, lids open, filled with rainwater and black garbage bags. The ground glistened with broken glass and oil. "We're jumping," I said. Liana shook her head violently. "I can't! I'll break something! You'll break more if you stay here!" She hesitated only a second more before squeezing her eyes shut and leaping. Her scream was swallowed by thunder as she fell into a pile of soggy cardboard boxes. I didn't have time to check if she was hurt. I jumped too. The landing knocked every breath out of me. Pain shot through my side, my palms burning where they scraped metal. I staggered to my feet, gasping, and grabbed Liana's arm. "Run!" The alley stretched ahead of us, narrow, slick, dimly lit. The street beyond glowed with passing headlights. If we reached it, if we found people, noise, witnesses, someone, anyone, we might stand a chance. But then a shadow dropped from above. One of the men landed 10 feet in front of us, blocking the exit to the street. His smile widened. "Going somewhere?" Liana's knees buckled. I stepped in front of her. The man cracked his knuckles. "Just come quietly." "Move," I warned. "Or what?" I tightened my grip on the damp bat still clutched in my hand, the one I'd snatched in the hallway before fleeing. He glanced at it, amused. "You think you're walking out of here with that?" A noise behind us. Metal creaking. The leader was climbing down. We were trapped. Liana whimpered, stumbling back against the wall. Rain poured down her cheeks like tears she couldn't stop. My heart pounded so fiercely it hurt, but my mind sharpened with each drop of adrenaline. Fear turned into focus. The alley was a maze of shadows, trash, and rain-slick surfaces, but it was still a maze, and every maze had an exit. I leaned close to Liana. "When I say run, you run through him. Don't look back, don't stop." She stared at me like I'd lost my mind. "I can't get past him." "You can. He's focused on me." The man in front of us lifted an eyebrow. "You two finished whispering?"
I let out a slow, steady breath. Then I charged. I swung the bat not to hit him, but to make him dodge. He stepped sideways, raising his arm to block. That's when I screamed, "Now, Liana, run!" She bolted forward with a sob, slipping past him while he was distracted with me. He snarled, reaching for her, but I swung again, this time low. The bat cracked against his shin.
He cursed, stumbling, giving her just enough time to sprint into the street. "Go!" I shouted after her. "Get help!" But she didn't stop. She didn't even look back. She ran. The man recovered quickly, fury contorting his face. "Wrong choice," he spat. Then he tackled me. The bat flew from my hand, skittering across the ground. My back slammed against the pavement, pain exploding through my spine. He pinned me down easily, too easily, his weight crushing the breath out of my chest. Above us, the leader's boots hit the ground. He wiped rain from his brow, eyes fixed on me with cold disappointment. "You should have given up," he said softly. "You're not valuable hurt, but worthless obstacles, we remove them." I struggled under the man's grip, gasping. The world blurred at the edges, rain streaking my vision. Then, sirens. Faint, but growing. The men froze. The leader snapped his head toward the street, eyes narrowing. She called them. The one pinning me swore, "We don't have time." The leader ordered, "We take her. The sister will come to us later." He reached for me, but headlights suddenly flooded the alley. A car screeched to a stop, doors slammed, and a voice shouted, "Police, don't move!" Flashlights cut through the rain, slicing the darkness into sharp white beams. The men froze, not like cowards, but like predators caught mid-hunt, calculating whether to flee or fight. For 1 second, the entire alley held its breath. "Hands where we can see them!" An officer shouted again, closer now, boots splashing through puddles. The man pinning me hesitated, eyes darting from the police to the leader. The rain dripped from his jaw, his breath coming hard. He was waiting for a command. The leader didn't give one. Instead, he stepped back into the shadows, hands raised slightly, but not in surrender. He was measuring, studying, deciding. He wasn't afraid of the police. He was annoyed by them. Interrupted. "Get up!" The officer barked at me, his flashlight landing on my face. "Are you injured?" The man above me tensed, just long enough. I shoved my knee upward, twisting hard beneath him. He lost balance, slipping on the wet pavement. I rolled away as the officers charged forward. "On the ground, now!" Shouts collided with thunder as the alley erupted into chaos. The man who had pinned me swung at an officer, landing a solid blow that sent the flashlight spinning. Another officer tackled him, slamming him against the wall. His shout was swallowed by the storm. But the leader, he didn't run. He didn't fight. He stepped backward, melting into the darkest corner of the alley, just as the police lunged. One moment he was visible, defined by rain and dim streetlight, and then he wasn't. A ghost made of muscle and calculation, slipping through a crack the eye didn't catch. "He's fleeing!" one officer shouted. But I knew his retreat wasn't panic. It was strategy. He had gotten what he wanted from tonight. Knowledge. Our fear. Our limits. How far I would go. He knew everything he needed for next time. I sat up slowly, pain throbbing through my ribs. My palms were scraped raw, the skin broken. Rainwater ran down my arms, mixing with blood. A hand touched my shoulder. "You're safe now," an officer said. But the words landed hollow. "Where's my sister?" I gasped, bracing myself against the wall. "She's the one who flagged us down," he answered. "She's in the squad car, shaken, but alive." Alive. The relief hit me so hard I almost folded. Another officer knelt beside the man who'd been knocking me around. They were cuffing him, reading him rights over his curses. 2 more officers scanned the alley for the leader, but he was long gone. They lifted me gently, guiding me toward the flashing lights at the street. Blue and red blurred across the wet pavement. The police car doors were open. Rain hammered the roof in frantic rhythm. Liana sat in the back seat, drenched, shaking violently. When she saw me, her eyes widened.
filling instantly with tears. "I'm sorry," she sobbed through the glass. I I didn't know what to do. I thought they were going to kill you. I I rested my hand against the window. She pressed hers to the same spot from the inside, separated by a thin sheet of cold, fog-streaked glass. Her face crumpled. "I shouldn't have run. I should have stayed." "You did the right thing," I managed. "You saved us." The officers approached her door. "We need statements from both of you. Medical check first." I nodded numbly. They helped me into the front of a patrol car. Heat blasted from the vents, thawing the chill in my bones. I closed my eyes, letting my head rest back, trying to steady my breathing. But the moment I did, all I could see was the leader's face. Calm, cold, calculating. Like tonight had been nothing but a rehearsal. My eyes snapped open. "Did you catch all of them?" I asked the officer beside me. He hesitated. "We got one. The others ran. Don't worry, we'll track them." But worry was all I felt, because I knew the truth in my bones. The man who'd called himself Kai didn't run from anything. He retreated only when it benefited him. He let his men take the fall while he vanished back into whatever shadows he'd come from. He wasn't done. Not with Liana. Not with me.
Rain splattered against the windshield, streaking down the glass like frantic fingers. The officer's radio crackled. A voice came through. Suspect leader still at large. Possible vehicles seen heading east. I stared out at the storm-soaked streetlights blurring past. It wasn't over. Not even close. At the precinct, they separated us for questioning. Hours passed, or minutes. It was hard to tell. My mind felt like a cracked mirror, shards reflecting different pieces of fear and anger and exhaustion. I answered everything. How they found us, why they were after Liana, how long she'd been involved. But I kept one thing to myself. That text. "We only need one of you." The moment officers weren't looking, I checked my phone again. A new message. Sent just 10 minutes earlier. "You made this interesting. We'll talk soon." My pulse quickened. Another followed. "Protect her if you want. But remember, you chose to be part of this." My breath caught. A third message arrived. A photo. Taken from somewhere nearby. Blurry from rain, but unmistakable. Me. Sitting in the patrol car, head against the window. I looked up reflexively, scanning the station windows, the street outside. My skin prickled. He was watching. He had been here. Close. Close enough to take a picture without anyone noticing. And if he was still watching us now, then Liana wasn't safe in the next room. Neither was I. I stood abruptly, knocking over the paper cup of water they'd given me. It splashed across the table. My heartbeat thudded so hard my ears rang. I rushed toward the holding room where they'd taken her. An officer tried to stop me, but something in my expression must have startled him. He stepped aside. I reached the door and pushed it open. Liana sat alone, head in her hands, shaking. "Pack your things," I whispered. "We're leaving." She looked up, confused. "Leaving? They said we have to stay. We're not safe here." Her eyes widened as she saw the terror in mine. "What happened?" I showed her the picture on my phone. Her breath caught. And somewhere outside the precinct, somewhere in the dark, rain-soaked streets, a man with cold eyes and shattered fingers was waiting for us to make our next move. The moment she saw the picture, grainy, rain-blurred, but unmistakably me sitting in the patrol car, her whole body recoiled. She folded into herself, a quiet, choked sound escaping her throat. Not quite a sob, not quite a scream. something in between, raw and instinctive. He's here? Here? Now? Maybe not inside, but close enough. Too close. She pushed herself up from the metal chair, legs trembling, hands gripping the table for support. Her eyes flicked toward the tiny window in the door, as if expecting a shadow to pass by at any moment. The fluorescent lights above hummed sharply, churning the air stale and thin. "Where do we go?" she asked. "I don't know yet, but anywhere is safer than being cornered." I grabbed her wrist gently and pulled her toward the door, but the moment we stepped into the hallway, an officer stepped into view. "Where are you two going?" he asked, frowning. "We still need your statements." "They have my statement, and she's not safe here." "We can't just release—" "You don't understand," I snapped, stepping forward, adrenaline doing the talking for me. "The man you're looking for has already been here, outside, watching. He sent me a picture. He's not running, he's planning." The officer's posture shifted, less confrontational, now more cautious. "Let me see the picture." I hesitated. Showing it meant admitting just how close Kai had gotten without any of the dozens of armed, trained officers noticing, but hiding it wasn't an option. I handed him the phone. His eyes hardened as he studied the screen. "When did this come through?" "Minutes ago, while we were both here." He exhaled sharply through his nose. "Stay here. Do not leave this hallway." He stalked off down the corridor, phone in hand, calling for his commanding officer. Doors opened, voices rose, radios crackled. The atmosphere shifted from routine annoyance to sharp alertness. Still, every instinct in me screamed we were sitting ducks. Leanna leaned close. "They won't be able to stop him," she whispered. "They don't know him like I do." My chest tightened. "Then tell me everything now. What did you get into? What does he want?" Her eyes darted nervously toward the cluster of officers forming near the entrance. Her voice dropped to the faintest thread. "It's not just money." "Then what?" He moves things. People. Information. And I saw something I wasn't supposed to." My spine stiffened. "What did you see?" She shook her head quickly. "Not here. Not with people listening." Before I could push her further, a door slammed open at the far end of the precinct, and several officers rushed outside, weapons drawn, shouting directions at each other. Another officer hurried toward us. "You two, come with me, now." His tone was urgent, not hostile, but undeniably alarmed. Leanna clung to me, her fear radiating through her skin. We followed him down the corridor, past desks and interrogation rooms, past a row of holding cells where muffled voices echoed behind bars. He led us to a room marked Protected Witness Consultation, swiped his badge, and opened the door. Inside. "You'll stay in here until we clear the area. We might move you to a safer location once we know what we're dealing with." The room was small. 4 walls, 1 table, a single security camera in the corner. A cage disguised as protection. I stepped inside, pulling Leanna with me. The officer started to close the door, but I stopped him with my hand.
"Tell me the truth," I said. "Is he still here?" He didn't answer. Not in words, anyway. He just gave me a look, sharp, tense, worried, and shut the door. The lock clicked. Liana started pacing immediately, arms wrapped around her chest. "He's not going to stop," she whispered. "He thinks he owns every mistake I ever made, and I made too many." "What did you see?" I asked again. She kept pacing, head low, eyes on the floor. "A meeting. A shipment. I wasn't supposed to be there." He brought me in to run a fake account, but I was curious. I looked at the wrong files, and he saw me looking. "What kind of shipment?" She stopped walking. Her breath hitched. "Not drugs. Worse. Before I could ask what that meant, the security camera in the corner made a soft, mechanical twitch. Barely audible, but real. It shifted slightly, angling down toward us. Liana froze. "You saw that, right?" she whispered. "Yes." Another twitch. A faint click. Then, the lights went out. Complete blackout. Liana's hand clamped around my arm so hard I felt her nails through my sleeve. "Power outage?" she whispered. "No," I whispered back. "There's backup power. It should have kicked in by now." A slow humming vibration traveled through the walls, like someone was rerouting systems manually. Then, through the darkness, a small rectangular screen lit up on the wall. A police tablet still receiving external commands. On the screen, a message appeared. One word. Move. The font wasn't police issued. It was Kai. Another message appeared. You think they can help you. Liana trembled violently. And then a live feed popped up on the screen. Not from this room, from the main hallway. The hallway where we'd just been standing minutes ago. It showed officers running toward the exit, guns drawn. It showed chaos, shouting, scrambling. But the camera lingered, slowly panning toward the entrance door. A figure stood outside in the rain, not close enough to enter, just watching. The image sharpened. The hood lowered slightly. Kai. Even blurred by rain, his presence was unmistakable. Still, patient, smiling faintly as if everything unfolding was entertainment. Another message flashed on the screen. You should have opened the door earlier. Now we do this my way. Liana pressed her forehead to my shoulder, shaking. What does he want? I whispered. Another message appeared. Her or you. Decide. Liana made a thin, broken sound, the kind people only make when their fear hits a depth they never knew existed. Her fingers dug into my arm, not asking me to choose, begging me not to. The message stayed on the tablet screen, waiting, patient, like he had all the time in the world. The glow from the tablet barely lit the room, casting our faces in trembling blue. Don't, she whispered. Don't even think about making a choice like that. I won't let you. You're not letting me do anything, I said quietly. We're surviving. That's it. Another line appeared on the tablet. It doesn't have to be complicated. Just open the door. I glanced at the metal door of the witness room. Locked, heavy, reinforced. But Kai wasn't asking for the literal door to this room. He meant the precinct as a whole. He had shut down the power. He had rerouted cameras. He was playing with systems like toys he already owned. This wasn't a siege. This was him knocking. The tablet flickered, and suddenly the feed changed. Jumping to a camera outside the precinct. Rain hammered the pavement as headlights cut through the darkness. A line of vehicles had pulled up. 2 black SUVs, 1 car with tinted windows, and another vehicle I couldn't make out. Then the driver's door of the lead SUV opened. A silhouette stepped out. Broad shoulders, dark coat, face hidden beneath the hood. Not Kai. Someone else. Someone who moved like authority, like hierarchy, like the real threat had just arrived. Liana inhaled sharply. Oh no. No. He didn't call them. He wouldn't dare. Who is that? I whispered. She shook her head violently. If he brought them, it's not just about me anymore. It's not even about you. It's about tying up loose ends. The man in the hood turned slightly on the screen, speaking into a radio. He gestured toward the building. Several figures exited the SUVs behind him, organized, efficient, armed. Not street thugs. Not petty criminals. Something larger, something colder.
This was never about one man's anger. This was a network. The tablet buzzed with another message. Clock's ticking. I won't wait for their permission. The implication hit us both at the exact same second. Kai wasn't fully in control. He wasn't the apex predator.
He was terrified of the people he just alerted, and that made everything exponentially worse. "Sit down," I whispered to Liana, grabbing her shoulders. "Now." She sat, trembling so hard the chair shook beneath her. "We don't open anything," I said. "We don't pick anyone. We don't go anywhere near that hallway." "But they'll break in." "Then let them break in. They'll have to get through every officer in this building first." Another message appeared. "Last warning." The camera feed switched again, this time to inside the precinct lobby. 2 officers were speaking to the hooded man through the glass doors. They hadn't let him in, per protocol. One officer's hand hovered near his holstered weapon. Rain streaked the glass behind him, lightning flashing just enough to illuminate the tension in his jaw. The hooded man raised his hand calmly. No sudden movement, no threat. But 4 of his men stepped forward behind him, letting their coats fall open, revealing weapons. Liana gasped. The officer stepped back. Behind him, other officers rushed toward the lobby, shouting orders. The lobby lights flickered once, twice, then stabilized. The tablet buzzed. "You're running out of time. So am I." My breath grew shallow. Kai wasn't trying to intimidate now. He was trying to rush us. He was losing control of the situation outside. He needed leverage inside. He needed someone to hand over. Liana? Or me? My phone vibrated in my pocket, a sharp jolt against my leg. I pulled it out, expecting another message from Kai. But it wasn't him. It was an unknown number. A call. Not a text. Liana stared at the phone like it might explode. "Don't answer it." But something in my gut, some instinct born from the terror of the night, told me I had to. I accepted the call. A voice came through the line, quiet, steady, controlled. Not Kai. A woman. "You don't know me. But I am the one outside, and I need you to listen very carefully." My eyes darted to the tablet screen showing the hooded man. "You're with them," I said. "Yes," she replied, no hesitation. "But I am not here for either of you. I am here for him, the one you know as Kai. He is not following orders. He is destabilizing our operation." Liana's eyes widened in disbelief. "They're turning on him?" The woman continued. "If Kai gets to you first, he becomes valuable, untouchable. If we get to him first, we remove a liability." "And us?" I asked. "You are collateral in a game you never volunteered to play, but your sister knows things she should not know. That complicates the matter." Liana flinched. The woman sighed, like she was bored. "We don't want you. We don't need you. But we need Kai. And he will not leave without you. So whether you like it or not, you are bait." My stomach flipped. "So, what now?" I asked quietly. The woman's voice dropped lower. "You stay in that room. You do not open the door. Not for my men, not for the police, not for anyone." "Why?" "Because," she said, "I cannot control what my men might do if they see your sister, but I can control Kai, and he is coming through that building right now." Liana pressed her hands over her mouth, eyes filling with terror. The woman gave the final instruction. "And whatever happens, do not let him speak to you. His leverage is psychological. If he talks, you lose." The call ended. The tablet flickered again, showing the live feed of the lobby. Kai had entered the building. Alone. Unarmed. Walking with slow, measured steps, as if he owned every soul inside. Kai walked through the precinct lobby as if he were stepping into his own living room, calm, unhurried, untouched by the chaos he'd orchestrated. Officers circled him with weapons drawn, shouting commands, but he didn't flinch, didn't raise his hands, didn't even break stride. He simply smiled, that same faint smile he'd given me through the rain before disappearing into the alley shadows. A smile that said he'd already calculated every move in the room. The tablet feed zoomed closer, capturing the tension tightening the air around him. The officers didn't know what to do. Shoot an unarmed man? Arrest him? Wait for backup? Every second of hesitation was a second he used. "Stay back," an officer barked, stepping forward. Kai stopped, tilted his head, studied the man like he was a puzzle piece. Then, slowly, deliberately, he raised his hands to chest level. Not surrender, invitation. "You found me," he said, his voice perfectly audible through the camera's microphone. Chills skittered down my spine. He wasn't talking to the officers. He was talking to them, the shadow organization Liana had mentioned. And the moment he said it, the precinct doors behind him burst open. The hooded man stepped inside, water dripping off his coat, his posture rigid with authority. His entourage followed, forming a silent line behind him. The officers whipped their guns toward the newcomers. "Don't move, stay where you are." The hooded man didn't even blink. "Stand down." His voice was deep and calm, like someone who expected the world to obey him by default. The officers looked at each other, unsure whether they were being threatened or ignored. Kai's smile widened a fraction. "You brought friends." "You forced my hand," the hooded man replied. Lightning cracked outside. I felt Liana shrink beside me, curling into the corner of the witness room as if she might disappear into the plaster. Her breathing came in broken little gasps. "This is it. He's going to hand them a story where we're the villains. He'll twist everything. They'll take us. They'll—" "No," I said, gripping her shoulders. "We stay put. The woman told us to. We wait." "But she said they don't want us. They want him." She shut her eyes tightly, tears spilling down her cheeks. "You don't understand. They don't let loose ends live." "You're not a loose end." I didn't know if that was true. I said it anyway. Back on the tablet, Kai lowered his hands slowly, deliberately. "No need for theatrics," he said. "We can talk. There's nothing to hide." The hooded man stepped forward. His voice, when he spoke, was colder than Kai's, but oddly emptier. "Where are they?" Kai chuckled. "Wouldn't you like to know?" The hooded man didn't rise to the bait. He simply nodded once to the men behind him. They spread out, scanning the precinct, looking for us, looking for any trace of the two people Kai had tangled into their web. One officer tried to intervene. "Sir, you can't." He never finished his sentence. A second man, from the hooded group, placed a firm hand on his shoulder. Not aggressive, but assertive enough to silence him. The officer froze, realizing too late these weren't people you could bark orders at. Kai glanced at the tablet camera, at us. My throat constricted. He was looking directly into the lens, as if he knew exactly where it fed. The hooded man followed his gaze. His voice dropped. "Enough. Where are they?" Kai's expression shifted. Subtle, dangerous, calculating. He leaned in slightly. "So that's how it is. That's how it's always been. You forgot your place. Now you remember it." His jaw tightened. Behind him, officers exchanged confused glances, guns still raised, unsure which enemy they were facing. The woman's warning echoed in my head.
Do not let him speak to you. If he talks, you lose. I understood now. Kai didn't need force. He used words like weapons, pressure like a chokehold, confidence like a key that opened locked doors. And he was about to use those weapons on someone far more dangerous than us. Suddenly, the feed flickered, switching to another camera, a hallway near us. Liana clutched my arm. They're coming! They're coming right now! Boots thundered down the hall. Men in dark coats swept through, checking rooms, kicking doors, searching. The power outage made the hallway lights pulse dimly, casting long shadows across the floor. One of the men reached our hallway, then another, then a third. They moved silently, efficiently, checking each door. We held our breath. My heartbeat drummed in my throat, loud enough I thought they'd hear it. They stopped at the door next to ours, opened it, emptied it, moved on. The next door, and the next. They were 2 doors away. 1 door. Now they stood outside ours. Their shadows pooled beneath the doorframe, darkening the gap under the door. My breath hitched. Liana's fingers dug into my sleeve. One of the men leaned forward, testing the lock. The handle rattled, once, twice. Then, a loud, echoing bang shook the precinct. A gunshot? A blast? A door being thrown open? We didn't know. The men outside our door froze. Radios crackled. Someone shouted in the distance. More footsteps thundered. The men beside our door exchanged a glance, then suddenly rushed back down the hall toward the lobby. We were still alive. For now. The tablet feed switched back to the lobby. Kai was no longer standing. He'd been slammed against the wall by the hooded man, hand gripping his collar, rage slicing through the calm facade. Officers shouted, guns aimed. Tension snapped like wires pulling taut. Kai lifted his eyes, staring straight into the closest camera again, straight at us, and he mouthed a single word. Run. The moment Kai mouthed that single word, something inside me snapped into razor-sharp clarity. Every instinct I had been drowning in all night, fear, confusion, helplessness, burned away, replaced by something clean and fierce. Survival. I grabbed Liana's arm. We're leaving, now. She shook her head in panic. But the woman said, I don't care what she said. Kai warned us. That means whatever's coming is worse. A roar of voices thundered through the hallway outside. Officers shouting, boots slamming against the floor, radios crackling with frantic orders. The walls trembled under the force of something crashing somewhere deeper in the building. Someone screamed. Someone else yelled to take cover. Chaos had erupted. And in chaos, people like Kai's organization thrived. They were using the confusion to reach us before the police could stabilize anything. I shoved a chair under the witness room door handle. Not much protection, but enough to buy seconds. I scanned the room desperately for anything useful. The vent near the ceiling was small, but not impossible. The maintenance grate below it sat loosely in its frame. I said, help me. She blinked at it. No, I can't fit.